Goths, metalheads, Wiccans, vampires. If there's one thing we all have in common, it's our all-black wardrobes. And nothing is a bigger enemy of black clothing than the endless summertime heat. But fear not, shadow magic is here to alleviate your suffering. Original symbolic designs set on light-colored clothing lets you be yourself without the heat stroke. Go to shadowmagic.online and use the code MTF10 to receive 10% off at checkout. Shadow Magic. Represent the darkness without melting in the sun.
Hello, everyone. It's me, yours truly, your one and only podcast review host. That's right. It's another week of the Book Cellar, and we're bringing you another banging book that is on everybody's lips. This show is all brought to you by Eventide Entertainment. So this is exciting. We are back for another week. I was able to get a book done. I didn't think I would just because we had some hiccups on the way. So as you guys know, last week I announced that I am reading Furyborn. Woo, so exciting. Really recent release. So I could not for the life of me get into that book. And it was due with my library and I felt a lot of pressure to get it done. And I really did try. And I don't know if it's just I'm getting a little bit burnt out from YA fantasy right now, especially since a lot of it lately has been seeming really similar to each other. Not to say that Legendary, which was the book that I released last week of my review, was terrible by any means. I just think at that moment reading into like a whole brand new series that I wasn't super excited about, but I was looking forward to it. I just couldn't get into it. So I didn't want to mark that as a DNF, which is I did not finish, because I felt like I could try it again. I wouldn't say it was a terrible book. It just couldn't, it didn't enthrall me or get me excited like other books have. So with that said, I decided to change it up and read a book that I was really interested in, which was Ace of Shades. Now, I have been eagerly awaiting this book's release, and I was lucky and fortunate enough to be an Owl Crate subscriber, which meant in April, I got Ace of Shades in my book crate for that month. I was super happy, very excited, but I had to put it on the back burner because we had quite a few really big YA releases as well as adult releases that happened this last 3 months. It's been crazy. There's still a couple books I need to get from my library that are still very popular releases, but it looks like we're going to be winding down, and I'll actually review some books that I've had on my shelf for a while because I need to give them attention. They need my love. As some of you guys probably are aware, I am a huge book reader. I collect books. I couldn't even take all of my books with me when I moved from my parents' house to New York. And I have like probably an eighth of what I used to have. And I tried to bring books that either were my absolute favorites and I couldn't live without, or books I had not read yet. So I have a lot of books that I haven't read that sit on my shelf and stare at me every time I'm up here creating my show. And I just want to whisper to them like, I'm sorry. I love you and I want to read you. It's just other books are taking priority and you need to understand that. I bought you. I showed you some love. So yeah. So as we're saying, I had to put Ace of Shades kind of on the back burner for the moment because I needed to review books that were a more pressing matter. And I guess by getting library books, that kind of gives me incentive to read them faster because I have to give them back every 2 weeks. Now, Ace of Shades, because I got it in my Owl Crate, I was like, oh, I could put this off because I own this book. Poor thing. All right, so I was really excited to read this book. It, from what I read, was being compared to Six of Crows, which I love that author. She's amazing. She wrote that Shadow and Bone series, which was just phenomenal, and then still kept in with the same world with Six of Crows, just a different cast of misfits, if you will. So to know that Ace of Shades was kind of inspired from that, I was really looking forward to it. It had a really interesting plot. The description really intrigued me, and just the setting was cool. And I was really looking forward to it and had been on my want list for a long, long time. So when I was having issues with Furyborn, I was like, you know what? I'm going to return this to the library because it's due. I will pick this up again, probably at the end of the summer, try to take it out again. I'm going to give a chance for other people to have it for a bit. And I'm going to read Ace of Shades because I've been wanting to read this. I need to get it done now. So I read this book in 2 days flat, which tends to be my general turnaround on a book that I enjoy. And we will get into our review of it right meow. So Ace of Shades is by Amanda Foody, and this is going to be book 1 in the Shadow Game series. It's going to be a trilogy, 3 books. This is book 1, and it was just recently released. It is in hardcover form, and it was 411 pages. Now, I'll mention this later, but it was a very dense 411 pages. I have been reading other books that are around that same page length, but I don't know if it's the font or the way that it was laid out. It just felt like a lot more words per page, and so it did slow me down compared to other books. Like Legendary, very similar page length, and I feel like I ripped through that one really quickly, where this one, it just felt really, really dense. So I wouldn't suggest this be like one of those overnight kind of you stay up all night reading books. I think it will take a couple days to get through. And I have a couple other reasons for why it took me a little longer to read this. But we will get there. So this was released April 10th, 2018, the same release date of Circe, which I also reviewed not that long ago. Amazing book. I need to buy that. I love that book. Anyway, we're not talking about that. So yeah, released April 10th, 2018. So it's only a couple months old. And I am very, very shocked by the reviews. This is a new book, guys. And usually new books, as I've explained before, have higher ratings because people that read them right away are the ones that have been kind of waiting on it with bated breath and, you know, crossing their fingers and holding themselves together, waiting for the release. And then they're usually really big fans of the author or just super excited and hyped about the book and will normally have a really high rating in the beginning. Now, for this book only being 3 months old, it already has a Goodreads rating of 3.87. Which, you know, that's still very close to 4 stars, so that's still a good rating. But whenever I see books that have just been released and they're already dropping below 4 stars, that does not mean a very good, it's just not a good sign. That's telling me that there's a lot of low ratings versus high ratings, so there's a huge discrepancy there. And, I mean, Amazon is no surprise, but even for Amazon, it was low. Amazon had it at a 4.1, and I've rarely seen Amazon that low before. Again, 4.1 is not that bad, but for a new release, these seem pretty low numbers to me, especially for one that has been everywhere. Yeah. Book 2 is going to be called King of Fools, so we already have a title and a possible book cover. It's not completely confirmed, but it is there on Goodreads if you want to check it out. This author is also the author of Daughter of Burning City, which was popular but also had mixed reviews. So this isn't her debut novel, so she has a little bit of writing experience under her belt. She has been published. So there was kind of a higher expectation for her, given that this is her second book, as well as her first series. So keep that in mind as we pick it apart a little bit. So like I said, Ace of Shades has been everywhere. Book bloggers have been giving it like huge raving reviews. It was available on NetGalley, which is a way for reviewers on Goodreads, as well as bloggers, YouTubers, to be able to review books that have not released yet. I will get there eventually. My goal is by the end of the year to be able to request books from NetGalley, so we'll actually start giving you reviews from books that haven't even been released yet. So that's something we're striving towards here at the Book Cellar, aka me. So yeah, everybody has been requesting reviews for this. A lot of our copies were sent to bloggers, so there was a lot of people raving about this before it was released. And then Owlcrate, which is how I got my version of the book, also included it in their monthly April box, which meant that all the subscribers that are subscribed to Owlcrate got that book. So that might also be an indication why we already have a 3.87 from Goodreads, because people that normally buy brand new releases are super excited about the book. Well, if you're sending in a subscription box, you're kind of giving it to readers of all tastes. So, yeah. And I will say some of the reviews on Goodreads and Amazon were hilarious. People are very skilled. I think I need to write more with my reviews and not just have my podcast, but I don't know. Life. Difficult. Okay, let's get into the description, and then we will break down our 3 areas that we talk about. So here we go. Welcome to the City of Sin, where casino families reign, gangs infest the streets, and secrets hide in every shadow. En Salta was raised as a proper young lady, and no lady would willingly visit New Rains, the so-called City of Sin. But when her mother goes missing, En must leave her finishing school and her reputation behind to follow her mother's trail to the city where no one survives uncorrupted. Frightened and alone, her only lead is a name, Levi. Unfortunately, Levi is not the gentleman she expected. He's a street lord and a con man. Levi is also only one payment away from cleaning up a rapidly unraveling investment scam. So he doesn't have time to investigate a woman leading a dangerous double life. En's offer of compensation, however, could be the solution to all of his problems. Their search for clues lead them through glamorous casinos, illicit cabarets, and into the clutches of a ruthless mafia donna. As En unearths an impossible secret about her past, Levi's enemies catch up to them, ensnaring him in a vicious execution game where the players always lose. To save him, En will need to surrender herself to the city, and she'll need to play. So I'm just going to let that simmer and marinate in your little brains right now, my little brain as well, since that does sound like a very good description. Let that marinate like a juicy steak on the grill, and we'll be right back. We're going to take a quick short minute.
You know, there's nothing quite as satisfying as a good conversation with intelligent company. Join comedian Don Smith every week as he sits down and talks with comedians, actors, filmmakers, writers, and everyday schmoes. It's The Life with Don Smith, Wednesdays at noon on 106.9 FM, and now available on the Eventide Entertainment podcast feed every Friday on Spreaker, YouTube, and iTunes. Wednesdays on Eventide, Robert Yetter and Mike Shea sit down and throw albums at each other, talking about them, picking them apart, ripping them a new one. All different artists, all different genres, all different levels of suckage. It's Track Record, Wednesdays at 9 a.m. on the Eventide podcast feed. For more information, go to eventideent.com.
All right, so we're back and ready to go, huh? So what did you think of that description? Did it interest you? Did it pique a little something going on in your brain? It did for me, and it definitely gave me that reminder of Six of Crows. I was excited to read this, and unfortunately, it did not live up to my expectations. And I say that so sadly, but it's true. It was a letdown. And from what I'm seeing, either people loved it or really, really did not. I kind of fall in I thought it was okay. I wouldn't say it was the most terrible book I ever read, and it definitely was not the best book I've ever read. And it wasn't in the middle. It was kind of a little bit lower than the middle to me. So if anything, I would probably say 2 to 2.5 stars. I'm just going to throw that out there now so you know what's coming. I'm going to really try to be kind. I don't want to be bitchy and come off as an elitist jerk who likes to pick books apart. But honestly, given that I read so many books now, I feel frustrated by a lot of pieces of writing and certain elements and devices that authors use to incite or inspire people to read their book. And I get really frustrated with that because it almost feels like I was tricked into reading a book that I thought I would really love, when in reality, it did not live up to these expectations I set for it. So with that said, let's jump into this. So the plot revolves around the search of N's mother. N and Levi meet and really early in the book, and they realize that they both kind of need to stick together for different reasons, and they also kind of use each other to get ahead. Levi needs N's money, where N needs Levi because he is the only person that can really help her find her mother. Levi actually helps N get a job in this crazy city, and it actually puts N in more danger than he thought he would ever put her in. Pretty interesting as far as the world and the history. As far as some of the concepts were very, very interesting, but overall, it was very, very hard to drudge through in the beginning. It was just like a lot of information thrown at you with no explanation. But we'll get to that in a minute. So Levi is actually in trouble as well. So N is trying to find her mother, uses Levi to find her, and Levi is using N for her money because he's actually in a 10,000 volt, which is their currency in this book, debt, and needs to pay within 10 days. And the book opens basically at day 1 and progresses all the way to day 10. Yes, this book takes place all in the matter of 10 days, which is probably why I had so many issues. I mean, we're not going to really talk about that being a huge detail, but it is to me personally just based on how the book was executed. I will say on a positive note that having this all take place in the matter of 10 days did lead to a lot of suspense as well as high stakes, and really was a driving force to move the plot forward. There was a very interesting twist that was kind of nice to have and was kind of one of the reasons why I still enjoyed the book to a degree. It had original concepts, and I love books that come in with originality, but it also did still kind of struggle being a shadow of Six of Crows. It definitely felt like the younger kid sister, if you will, of Six of Crows. Like it was trying to live up to a big name, and it just couldn't take itself there. The characters there was 2 main characters that we get in this book. It was switching POVs. So 1 chapter or 2 chapters would be with N, and then the other 2 chapters would be with Levi. So that was interesting. We got a boy-girl perspective. If you can't already kind of guess, there is some instant love connection there right in the beginning. I want to say maybe chapter 3. It starts very, very strong right at the beginning. Mind you, nothing super big happens between them, but this is a trilogy. We know what's going to happen in book 2. I don't even need to tell you. You guys know the song and dance. They were building up something in book 1 to give us that love connection, I guess, in book 2. So N, she comes from New Rains and is here to find her adoptive mother, who has been missing for months. I want to say over 4 months. She takes the summer off from her boarding school in order to find her mother, and her mother just happens to be lost in what is called the City of Sin. She has a handful of volts, which is the currency, and a name, Levi. Her mother actually would write letters to N telling her, hey, it's taking me a little bit more time to get home. If something has happened to me, I should be home in this time. If I don't come back, look for this person. They will help you figure out where I am. I will say that both characters were not fleshed out very well. It felt very basic level, not a lot of dimension, definitely just kind of 1 to 2 dimensional characters, just not a lot of growth. And the growth that did happen was so unbelievable and ridiculous to me that it just didn't make the characters interesting or engaging. And I think that was part of the problem why I didn't like it. And I think that's also part of the problem why a lot of people didn't like it as well. The characters just didn't grab you. You weren't invested in them. They felt very basic, and their development was forced and ridiculous. So N, for instance, she comes off very snobbish and uppity. She remains this throughout the book, but she goes from a, snobbish, uppity, kind of trained individual in etiquette for boarding school, and within a matter of a couple days, she turns into an assassin. I'm not kidding. That's ridiculous. In the beginning of the book, she chases after this kid, and, they're like, oh, she can hang with us because she was able to run away from these guys. So that's what determines if someone is a possibility an assassin that they can be molded into. Are you kidding me? What about me? If it takes this chick a matter of 10 days to become an assassin, which, by the way, it takes me longer to get my nails filled in than it does for this chick to be an assassin, but I want to be a damn assassin. If it takes no time at all, what the hell? That's my calling. I need to be a ninja now. So, like I said, just in that sense, so unbelievable. Like, okay, sure, this chick can, All right, let's talk about Levi. Levi is the Lord of the Iron Gang. Keep in mind, both these characters are 17 years old. So we are made to believe that Levi, the 17-year-old boy, is the leader of this gang in this huge city, and he demands respect from all these other gang leaders and gets really irritated when people pick on him and call him pup or, like a young kid. I hate to break it to you. You are. I remember being 17 and thinking that we were grown up. Boy, oh boy, are we wrong. You're not. You got a lot of life to live before you'll be a gang leader. So, yeah. So, despite the fact that we're told that he's an infamous gang leader or gang lord in the City of Sin, where he's able to hold his own against all these gangs and crooks, none of his actual actions made me personally feel that he was capable of being a ruthless criminal as he was kind of presented to us as. He was a very unbelievable character, and a lot of his actions were actually confusing and kind of contradicted what we were told about him. And he was just, again, not a three-dimensional character, just felt very flat. Nothing super, I didn't feel invested. I know some people liked him as a character. I definitely will say I liked him more than the girl. But then again, I just did not feel connected to them. I didn't feel invested. I just wasn't interested in this story enough to be like, yeah, I want these guys to win in the end or progress or whatever their whole thing was. I'm still confused, by what there was to gain here in this whole entire book that I read. All right, so let's get down to the nitty-gritty, finish this up with the writing. So, like I said, this was pretty underdeveloped storytelling as well as world building. Very, very minor amounts were given to us. We were given a lot of cool concepts, I will say that, and very small amounts of explanation. So basically, the first half of the book, you're thrown all of this information without any explanation, all these new concepts, words, made-up languages, made-up ideas, basic level politics, history, with no explanation. I could not picture so much of this for the life of me, as much as I tried. It just felt very flat and like, yes, this is book one, but this is what book one is supposed to be in a trilogy. I don't need this huge, crazy plot or whatever. I need world building. I need you to take the time to build the world for me. That is what made Shadow and Bone so successful, was because the first book was explaining the history, the magic, the world that they live in. It was explained to the point where, yes, it was very description heavy, but to me, book one in a trilogy has to be description heavy. It cannot be anything else other than description heavy and character development. If it doesn't have those things, then it is not a true book one. You're basically just giving me hook line to get me interested enough to buy book two. And that's not okay. I don't like that. It's a waste of my time. And especially since this book is not a small book. It's 411 pages. And you can't give me explanation on the world building, the magic system, the politics, none of that in book one. But oh, don't worry, there's book two. It's a trilogy. No, I'm sorry. If I can't get invested in the world and the characters enough, I'm not going to pick up the second book. It's just not going to happen. There was way more world building and character development in Caraval, and I didn't even really like that book because the writing was ridiculous sometimes. But at the same time, I was invested enough where I was like, okay, I could see myself picking up book two. And now that I read book two, I actually liked it, and I will pick up book three. This story, however, I am so absolutely disappointed. I will not pick up book two. It's just not going to happen. I don't see it ever happening. I don't care if people are like, oh my gosh, it's, the second coming. No, I'm sorry. You made me feel like those 2 days of my life were wasted. I was bored while I was reading, and I zoned out quite a bit while reading and had to reread passages. So it's not worth my time to pick up book two. So that kind of threw in all the writing together, but it just, no explanation, very scattered throughout the whole book. There was no depth. The magic system was probably the most confusing. The orbs, which is the currency, I couldn't picture it. So the orbs that hold these bolts or zolts or whatever are the currency for this city. What do you mean by orb? Do you mean people just carry around these magic balls that, what are they called? Crystal balls, psychics, crystal ball, looking into the future. Is that what that is supposed to be? Or are they these floating spheres that follow people? And then also the currency can also be inside people's skin. And so if someone touches you, all of a sudden you lose currency. It just was confusing and didn't make a lot of sense and just led me to zone out and have to kind of understand what she was trying to tell me. But at the same time, I couldn't picture it for the life of me. So the fact that this was all over 10 days, obviously that shouldn't surprise me as to why character development and progression didn't make sense. It is crazy that this girl is going to become an assassin within a matter of a couple days. But again, now that I know it was over a 10-day span, kind of makes sense why I was rushed through. Doesn't mean it was a very good idea. So, overall, I was really looking forward to this book. Huge letdown for me, however. And I am really sad to say that This book is not going to be one I pick up again. It's not going to be a book that I follow the series through. It is one of those books that I'll probably donate to my library because there's no point in me keeping it. It is autographed by the author thanks to Owlcrate, but I mean, I don't know. I just am really bummed how lackluster this book was for me. I hope she does get better. This is book 2 for her that she's written. Hopefully, she really does turn around and kind of takes notes. And maybe book 2 will be really good. And I hope that the people that did enjoy this will pick it up and follow the series. I think the biggest problem for me is it maybe came off too juvenile. I love YA. I'm a little bit older. I'm not in their target audience of early teens and early 20s. I'm in my mid to late 20s, and I read YA as well as adult. And that's because I find really hidden gems within YA fantasy. And then these authors will sometimes write books that are also in adult fantasy. So to me, I feel like I can find a lot of great authors that kind of get me hooked for life. So that's why I read YA. Is it a little bit younger for me? Yes. But there's a lot of really awesome books in the young adult genre that deserve my attention and my focus. And that's why I keep trying these books. Ace of Shades, very juvenile. I do think someone a little bit younger than me could enjoy it. For us older folks that enjoy reading YA as well as adult, this is not for you. I would not recommend this. I honestly wouldn't recommend this to anybody, but if you do enjoy it, that's okay. I have my own tastes, and I think this just didn't hit it. For me, as you guys know, fantasy is about the world building, and you need to explain the world to me, and just to the point where I close my eyes and can envision myself there. If I can't do that or I get confused, it's just not going to work for me as a fantasy book / trilogy. So with that said, I don't recommend this, and I'm terribly, terribly brokenhearted over this breakup. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed my review this week. I am so sorry that this book couldn't live up to the expectations I had. Maybe you can change my mind and tell me, hey, there was something you missed, or maybe you even know how to explain the world to me. Please let me know. Find me on Goodreads. I'm always on there, wanting to talk to you guys, hang out, recommend books to each other, and eventually grow this book community to be insane. With that said, I'll see you next week. I don't know what book I'm reading, so that'll be fun. Have a great week and happy reading.
Oprah's Book of the Month Club? Please. We've got something much better in store for you.
Let's talk about books. The energy is right. I got a candle going. It feels good.
Every Monday morning, Jessica Gillen sits down and talks with you about the very best in books and literature.
Murder on the Orient Express. The Strange Case of the Alchemist's Daughter. The Cruel Prince.
It's the Book Cellar, every Monday morning, brought to you by Eventide Entertainment.